What is SECURA's 24-hour nurse hotline service, a featured component of our workers' compensation coverage? Well, let's say you have a box. A heavy one. Well, maybe a bit heavier. That's better. And let's also say that you have a good employee. His name is Bob. Now, Bob walks along and sees the heavy box.
What's this doing?
And Bob decides he's going to tidy up a bit and put the box back on the shelf where it belongs.
Uh-oh.
But what happens if Bob hurts his back? Well, Bob has options. He could, of course, tough it out and go back to work.
It's not that bad.
But what if it gets worse?
Ow.
That's not good for Bob, and that's certainly not good for his company. Now we're talking lost time, lost wages, insurance claims, potential litigation, and that's not good for anyone.
That's not good.
Or he could go see what his supervisor has to say, who may or may not have had the same injury 16 years ago when he was a star football player for State College.
I hurt my back.
Hurt your back, huh? I had that once.
But what is the supervisor going to do? Is he medically trained to make a decision? Probably not. So he drops the workers' compensation ball
Maybe we should get this looked at.
and decides to drive Bob off-site to the emergency room to get immediate assistance. And we all know what happens when the ER gets involved. A bill is generated, a claim starts, workers' comp, case management, indemnity, and so on. And poor Bob, we didn't forget about him, is still waiting to be seen at the ER.
Probably just busy.
Don't worry, Bob. Someone will be with you shortly.
Just a couple minutes, I'm sure.
Now let's look at a different scenario. What if Bob's company had SECURA workers' compensation coverage, which includes a 24-hour nurse hotline provided in partnership with MedCorp? And let's say Bob sees that same box again.
What's this doing here?
Sorry, Bob. This will be the last time.
Uh-oh.
And because SECURA and its agency partners train Bob's company on what to do when an injury occurs, Bob goes immediately to his supervisor.
I hurt my back.
Hurt your back, huh?
And the supervisor immediately calls SECURA's nurse hotline. And within seconds,
This is Kathy, registered nurse. How may I help you?
the supervisor and Bob are put in touch over the phone with a registered nurse. And in the end, it turns out Bob's injury isn't all that bad.
Phew.
And he's able to self-treat his injury with the proper instructions that the registered nurse gave him. And then Bob thanks the nurse,
Thank you.
and the supervisor thanks the nurse,
Thank you.
and Bob is able to stay at work, all because Bob's company had SECURA's nurse hotline. Now, sometimes workplace injuries are serious, and employees need off-site health care. So if Bob's injury were more severe,
Ow.
the nurse would have suggested to Bob that he see a medical provider. In those kinds of circumstances, the nurse will make a referral to the employer's preferred provider network, recommending the appropriate level of care so employees don't end up in the emergency room if they don't need to be there. MedCorp was the first to offer injury triage more than 12 years ago, and today serves over 100,000 client locations. Last year, MedCorp's nurse call center received more than 180,000 injury triage calls. MedCorp has physician oversight, experienced registered nurses, and a URAC-accredited health call center. Now, SECURA is among the first insurance companies to bring the nurse hotline experience to its workers' compensation policyholders as a standard service for no additional cost. The goal is to help policyholders reduce costs while offering an attractive benefit to their employees. We do this by advising the most appropriate level of treatment to injured employees. Best of all, medical advice is delivered by experienced, specially trained nurses directly to the workplace at the moment the injury occurs. And all of this with physician oversight. Nurse Hotline is just another example of SECURA's commitment to providing its policyholders with the highest level of protection and service. For more information about SECURA's workers' compensation program and Nurse Hotline, contact a SECURA independent agent or find one at www.secura.net.